Thanks for clicking! CMHC is giving up on returning Canada to 2004 levels of housing affordability. This according to a new report coming from the Housing Agency.
No way!
Yeah, according to the report, it's no longer possible to return levels of affordability back to 2004, and as such, they will start using 2019 as a more reasonable benchmark. And yeah, if you'll remember, back when CMHC was going to return affordability by 2030, 2004 levels of affordability was seen as a realistic target. Given that, as we've seen in report after report, and even on a poll on this channel, that so many of Canadians see house prices as their number one reason for staying out of the market, this is not a great sign. So what I want to do today is go over the report from CMHC, take a look at what 2019 levels of affordability would look like, and then discuss some implications. Speaking of affordability and prices, we are eagerly awaiting the release of June's real estate data coming out from the local boards next week, and we'll obviously have an update out on that data on this channel. Make sure you click like and subscribe if you want to get those updates, but for now, let's get into this report. Onto the report. As mentioned, the new report from CMHC says that the agency has given up on attaining 2004 levels of housing affordability, noting that the post-pandemic surge in housing costs changed Canada's affordability landscape, and restoring affordability levels last seen 2 decades ago is no longer realistic.
How good is that?
Yeah, as it turns out, when the central bank prints a whole bunch of money, which, as per the Cantillon effect, hits asset prices first, it's difficult to reverse those great, big, massive changes. And we've talked about this at great length before on this channel, that even though the government might stress concern over housing affordability, in reality, they aren't really looking for house prices to drop. As if prices did drop enough to restore that affordability, they'd have A, a problem with the voters, and B, almost more importantly, a problem with the banks.
Just remember who you're working for.
So CMHC has given up on that 2004 target. 2019 is now the new baseline. What exactly does 2019 levels of affordability look like? Well, in the new report, CMHC doesn't explicitly state what it thinks affordability looks like or the metrics that it's using, so we'll have to use a few crude metrics ourselves in order to put this all together. First, we can reference RBC's Home Affordability Index, which looks at ownership costs as a percentage of median household income to try to get a baseline idea of where these housing affordability measures might be heading. Back in Q1 of 2004, RBC notes that home ownership costs represented 34.6% of median household income on a detached. Fast forward to post-pandemic heights, that reached 63.8 and is now sitting at 55.9. 2019 was almost 46. So according to the government's new benchmark, it wants to see ownership cost as a percentage of median income hit levels between about 2004 and the heights that we saw in 2023.
Done my part. That's all you get from me.
With that said, RBC doesn't really give us an idea as to how they calculated these numbers either, exactly where they got their prices, where they got their rates, how they're doing the mortgages, etc., etc. In fact, a lack of disclosure in how they're getting their predictions is a real problem across government, industry, and the media. I'm not sure if it's purposeful deceit, purposeful manipulation, or they genuinely just don't know how to do it. Both of which I think are equally likely.
Yeah, he was calling him stupid.
So with that in mind, let's go build our own dataset. We'll grab the median incomes for the past few years from Stats Canada, grab the average benchmark price for the past few years from the CREA, we'll get average 5-year fixed mortgage rates from Stats Canada, and then average them yearly and put them into Excel. We'll then grab the formula to put together a mortgage payment in Excel from the renewal wave calculator that we looked at last year to get the mortgage payments. Divide everything up in Excel, and we get the average mortgage payment expressed as a percentage of median income. You're telling me RBC, the government, the media, can't do that? Regardless, looking at these stats, if you bought that benchmark price home back in 2019, it constituted 57% of median income, whereas by the end of 2024, it was 87%. One quick note, Stats Canada doesn't provide the median income for 2024, so I increased it by $1,000, only as a means to be overly generous so we have total comparisons. But you get the idea, we are currently a long way off from 2019 levels of affordability. So now that we have that calculator available to us, let's build it out. We'll extend the time frame back to 2030. 30 will assume a 1% per year increase in median income, which is actually fairly accurate. We'll assume 4% interest rates for now, bring everything over, and we get a purchase price of $550,000 to bring affordability back to 2019 levels. About a $140,000 decrease from where the prices are right now. So is that what the government is telling us, that prices are going to have to drop by $140,000 in order to make housing more affordable?
No.
So just for the sake of argument, let's change that interest rate down to 3%. At that rate, prices have to fall to $610,000, about $80,000 less than they are right now. So is that what the government is saying, that between now and some predetermined time horizon, prices are going to have to fall by another $80,000 or by $140,000 depending on the interest rate in order to restore affordability?
We really didn't think anyone would notice.
Given the amount of attention that the media gives to the CREA, Phil Soper, or whatever industry nonsense that's getting pushed that week, I'm sure the government's plan to bring down house prices substantially by $140,000 over however many years surely made a lot of headlines, right?
I've been very busy.
But look, and I think we went through this a few years ago, I just can't pinpoint the video right now, but that 2004 target, that 2004 level of affordability, didn't make any sense either. Let's take that 2005 benchmark price from the CREA, the earliest that they offer. We'll get the 5.6 interest rate in 2005 from CMHC, plug it all in, and we get 39% of income. Even with 3% interest rates, we need the benchmark price to drop by $270,000 to meet that target. A joke of a goal for CMHC in 2022, 23, 2024, of which they are now finally admitting. And I think that what we've seen today is the biggest hurdle to housing affordability. Not so much the prices, not so much the rates, but rather you've got a government that puts forward nonsense numbers. You've got a media that doesn't care to check the math, doesn't provide a check on government rhetoric, rather puts forward ridiculous numbers, ridiculous predictions paid for by the real estate industry. In the public, trying to make sense of it all, trying to make the decisions going forward, trying to decide who to vote for, not that I think it would have made a difference regardless of the party, and all the while the problem is pretty clear. Prices went up way, way too high on zero interest rates, affordability plunged, and in order to get back to those levels of affordability, all those who bought in early are going to have to lose an awful lot of money. Maybe not actually lose an awful lot of money, but lose an awful lot of paper gains. That's going to be a big problem for this large voting base, and it could be an even bigger problem for the banks, both problems of which any government is going to be loath to address. So we've got CMHC abandoning that ridiculous level of affordability, that 2004 target, that would have necessitated massive price drops that no population was ever going to allow. They've now switched their level of affordability to 2019, but as we saw today, that's still going to necessitate some very big price drops, between $80,000 and $140,000 depending on the interest rate over the next 5-10 years. It still seems pretty far-fetched to me that that's exactly what the government is going to be working toward. Not as far-fetched as the 2004 goal, but far-fetched nonetheless. With that said, we will obviously track the government initiatives that are totally going to happen to bring house prices down by $80,000 to $140,000. They're not going to do it. We're obviously going to track how this all plays out on this channel. Make sure you click, like, and subscribe if you want to get those updates. But for now, thanks so much for watching.